Hey guys, this is Locke. In this video, I'm going to be focusing on Thia, who I believe is criminally underrated. She is a very good epic hero. I think one of the best epic heroes in the game, and I think a lot of people are sleeping on her. So I will get into the reasons why I believe she's so good. And one of the things that she shines at, she does a lot of things, but one of the things that she shines at is provide AOE debuff protection to most of your team. So first of all, let's look at all the heroes. So I have put a filter here to see who provides debuff block, and all of these 9 heroes are able to do that. Most of them, 4 of them are legendaries, and 5 of them are epics. One of the reasons that Thia is, in my opinion, better than the others is because she is able to cast her skill on a shorter cooldown than the other heroes. Like I'm just going to go through a couple of them, and I'm not going to go through all of them right now, but if you want, you can take the time to do it. All of them have a recharge time of 20 seconds. Let's look at one more. This is so finicky sometimes to go through. Okay, so as you can see, 20 seconds to cast the skill, but Thia, her skill, she can cast every 16 seconds. And now this is assuming that you've leveled it up. If you have not leveled it up, the other heroes will cast their skill every 23 seconds, and Thia will cast her skill every 19 seconds. So first of all, this provides a much better debuff protection time. So let's say you have leveled it up. If you have leveled it up, she is going to provide you debuff protection every for 10 seconds every 16 seconds. So you have 10 seconds of coverage followed by 6 seconds of non-coverage. Whereas the other heroes, like for example, if you look at her, she will give you 10 seconds of debuff immunity provided by 10 seconds of non-debuff immunity. And the neat thing is, if you pair both of these together, if you have both of them on the same team, you're almost guaranteed a full time protection of both of them, and you can do it on auto. Like if you are not doing it on auto, you can you can use 2 heroes, any 2 of them that you want, and you can use one of them, and when the immunity runs out, you can start the other one. But if you run it on auto and both of them cast their skill to 20 seconds, they'll both most likely cast at the same time. So the debuff coverage will actually keep overlapping. That is not the case with Thia, because her debuff is a shorter cooldown. You're actually able to extend your coverage. So it will not even be 10 out of every 16 seconds. It'll probably be something like 13 out of 16 seconds, because the extra 3 seconds or 4 seconds will be covered by somebody else that you pair with, like Catherine. So this gives you, in PvE scenarios, this gives you almost immunity to debuffs completely if you are able to pair her with someone else. You can't do that with anybody else in the game. There is a chance you can do it with her, because she's also in a different debuff cycle, sorry, different ultimate cycle, because she casts her skills once every 24 seconds, and she's also able to remove debuffs as well. She does, sorry, not her. This person removes debuffs as well. So maybe you can pair her with someone else as well. But I mean, these are legendary heroes, and they're a lot more difficult to acquire. But if you have Thia and you pair her with Catherine, I think that's that's what I'm doing right now. Anyway, there are a lot of dungeons where I've paired Catherine and Thia together, and it gives me immunity to a lot of debuffs for almost the entire fight, which makes me able to survive the fights. So one such fight where I am doing that is the Phoenix, which is going to cast Burn. So this the dead Phoenix that I'm fighting, she casts Burn, and the burn stacks, and if she is able to cast the burn and then cast her ultimate, she wipes out my whole team. Like my entire team is one hit dead. But she doesn't really get a chance, and I've actually even managed to beat level 7. It was only once, but I've managed to do it simply because I'm able to extend the debuff coverage for a very long period of time. There isn't some games she doesn't even have, the Phoenix doesn't even have a chance to get burned on my units even once. Because so let me just show you the team that I'm using for this. This is the team, and as I said, I'm using both of these units to Thia and Catherine to be able to give my team almost a full-time debuff protection. So Thia doesn't actually give debuff protection to your entire team. Let's look at her skill again for a second. So she only gives debuff immunity to all ranged allies. So what about the non-ranged allies? So this is something you have to kind of think of. When I look at most of the teams, and when I'm fighting in arena and other videos that I've seen, a lot of people just use one tank and four other ranged allies. Sometimes they might use two units up front and three ranged allies, but they would never go more than that. So if you are using more than two melee units, then you have to kind of wonder if it is even worth bringing Thea, because then it might not be. But I think for most units, for most team compositions, you really want to just have one really strong tank that's able to have a lot of defensive capabilities, and four other units that are both a mix of support and attack units. And if you are using that composition, Thea will work really well, because the only one that's not getting this debuff immunity is your tank, which is supposed to be more hardy anyway. Like, your tank is supposed to be able to survive those debuffs much better than your backline units, which have much lower health, much lower defense, and they're more prone to die faster. So she provides coverage for all the other units except for your tank, which it's unfortunate that she can't provide protection for your tank, but at least she is able to provide protection for all of your other units. And it doesn't even matter where they're in the game as well. She does it for all ranged allies, regardless of their position. Now, that also might be something especially interesting when it comes to PvP, because when it comes to PvP, you want to bunch up your units so you can heal them all, right? But if you bunch your units up and you put them together, then when the enemies are doing AoE, they will hit all of them. So if you have, for example, let's consider, not sure, I wanted to, let me put the filter up again. So it was debuff block and all. So if I'm using somebody like her, so even in PvP or PvE, let's say I'm using her and I want to grant debuff protection to my team. Now I need to make sure everybody is in this range to be able to grant that debuff protection. So if I'm doing that, and if the enemy is casting AoEs that are targetable, maybe the enemy will also be able to, use attacks in this range. So now I have to wonder, is it worth it to put them bunched up together, or is it not worth it, right? But with Thea, that's not a problem, because she actually grants debuff immunity to your entire team. Your ranged allies of your entire team, regardless of their positions. Now, she provides a lot more than just debuff immunity, but I think, in my opinion, that debuff immunity is the main selling feature. Like, it's just so strong. There's so many debuffs. There's so many stages where the enemies cast poison, and then the poison stacks, they cast burn, and the burn stacks, they cast like recharging speed down, all kinds of debuffs. And these are, she really brings a lot of value if you're bringing her to these stages. But let's look at the other things that she brings as well. Now, she grants invisibility to your team. At first glance, that might not seem so important, but there's actually several reasons, both in PvP and PvE, that makes this invisibility buff really good coming from her, specifically from her, not from other places, not from other units. And the reason for that is because of her passive skill. It says, the first thing her passive does is whenever she takes more than 10% HP in damage, she grants invisibility to herself. But the second thing, all allies under invisibility, including herself, take 15% less damage. So now let's look at the cooldown of this again. She is granting invisibility for 10 seconds out of every 16 seconds if you are able to level the skill up. Otherwise, it's 10 seconds out of every 19 seconds. So that's more than a 50% coverage for all your ranged allies who take 15% less damage. It's not increased defense, it's actually reducing your entire damage by 15%. Most of the time, that equates to more than 15% defense. Right? It's an overall reduction of 15% damage, which is huge, which is really good. And again, this is only for the ranged allies. Your tank is probably already tanky enough anyway. Like in most stages, you'll find that if the boss is doing AoE, your other units probably die faster than your tank. Your tank is able to survive. It has all the HP and defensive benefits, but your whole team is dying. There are several stages where the boss just does huge AoE attacks, and bringing Thea to this team is going to help your ranged allies being able to survive these AoE attacks by granting this 15% damage reduction passive. Now, she also has a debuff that she's able to prohibit healing, so this might come in handy in a few stages. And she has a very strong single target attack that does 850% of damage. So this is also a little bit good for what's it called, for that, like the Poseidon type boss, that huge vortex boss, because she does a high single target attack to this boss. Um, Now let's look at her second skill. Her second skill will heal the ally with the lowest HP and all the allies with invisibility. So this is not even a single target healing anymore. She will heal the lowest target and everyone on the map, regardless of where they are, with invisibility by 200% of attack and 2000 of enlightenment. So if you build her with very high attack, you don't need to worry about crit and crit damage and whatever else. But if you build her with high attack, she will do a lot of damage with her single target ability, and every 12 seconds, she is also able to provide healing for all your ranged allies, hoping that that skill overlaps with this skill, where when she casts the skill, all your allies are under invisibility. Then she will provide everyone a healing, a pretty significant healing, as long as you have more than, as long as you have a high attack stat, she will provide a significant healing to all your ranged allies. So that's a pretty good skill, right? So she does a lot of things, as you can see. So she provides debuff immunity to your team. She well, not your whole team, but just your ranged allies. She provides debuff immunity to them. She also reduces the damage that they take by 15%, and she provides a pretty significant healing. And on top of that, she does pretty good, respectable damage at 850% of attack. So she brings a lot to the team. Her passive, sorry, not her passive, but her captain skill is also good. As you keep going in higher stages, you'll find that different bosses have very high resistances. So you really need to pump up your accuracy stat if you want to land debuffs on them. So this gives you an additional 50 accuracy in these dungeons, which is huge sometimes. Sometimes it's better than the HP passive if you really need to land your debuffs. Because, for example, maybe you're bringing a unit that does the 50% attack down debuff, but you can't land it. If you're not landing it, then it's doing so much more damage than your extra, whatever HP buff that you have on is going to do, right? So in this case, bringing the accuracy captain skill is better than the HP skill or a defense skill. It really depends by the dungeon, but I found that this accuracy aura has helped me a lot, and I have used it, and depending on the dungeon and how high the level is to complete these dungeons. So I talked a little bit about what makes her so good in PvE scenarios, but she's also very, very good in PvP as well. And a lot of it has to do with the timing of her skill. So when the game starts, the initial recharge time is how many seconds you need until you can cast your skill the very first time. So with her skill ups, she only needs 9 seconds before she can cast her first skill. Whereas most of the other units, they actually need 12 seconds to cast their first skill. So let's take a look at even some legendary units. If you go all the way up to legendary units, I'm just picking random units right now, but you can see that the initial recharge time is 12 seconds for most of them. Maybe some of them might be a little bit different, but most of the common ones are 12 seconds. Now, the reason that's important is because in PvP, a lot of what happens is that debuffs are very central to PvP. If you're able to stun your enemies, then you're able to kill them while they're stunned. Whoever gets the stun off first oftentimes wins. So with Thia, since she was able to cast her debuff immunity skill at 9 seconds, you are most of the time you're able to get it off before the enemy is able to cast their AoE debuff skills or whatever it is, right? So most of the time you already have protection before they cast the skill. And even if they cast, instead of casting a debuff, even if they cast an AoE damaging spell, right, you still have the 15% less damage that you take because of Thia's passive. So either way, even if they're trying to debuff you, which is going to miss, or if they're trying to damage you, you're still covered. So it makes your whole team able to survive these PvP encounters. And I think she is vastly overlooked when it comes to these PvP scenarios, because she's very good. There is one counter to her, though, which is this unit. What this unit's passive does is whenever a unit gains a buff, she has a 30% chance of dispelling that buff, and also does damage to that unit as well. So she is almost like a direct counter of Thia. She's a legendary unit, so not so many people will have her. So I'm using Thea in my arena battle. So whenever I see this unit on the opposing team, I just don't fight her. I fight someone else because this is really hard to deal with, and her other skills also deal with buff prohibition, so it's hard for Thea to use any of her skills effectively. So yeah, I try not to. I don't really use. I try not to fight Tamar when I'm using Thea. But other than that, most of the other units, the most powerful units, a lot of them deal AoE damage, or they deal, like some kind of debuffs like stuns or freezes everybody or something like that, right? A debuff. The arena is very debuff heavy, so I find that Thea is very instrumental in progressing through arena. There's also something else that you can do as well. Let me find one unit to talk about. So this unit. So what she does, she has this second skill, which she casts right when the battle starts, and she will teleport to the enemy with the lowest HP. Now, assume for a second that the lowest HP unit on your side is Thea. So what she will do is she will teleport to Thea and attack her. However, because of Thea's passive, Thea, if she takes more than 10% HP in damage, she automatically goes invisible. So now this unit cannot even target Thea anymore. She will attack her once, and sometimes, she does 3 attacks, right? So after the first attack, if it is strong enough to take Thea's HP down by more than 10%, she's not even able to do the other 2 attacks because Thea just goes invisible and she can't target her anymore. So she will run to the nearest ally unit. If the nearest ally unit is your tank, then she's just focusing on the tank. And suppose that your lowest HP unit just for some reason is not Thea, it's somebody else. That's okay as well, because as long as your unit can survive for 9 seconds, then you're okay. Because if you're surviving for 9 seconds, you're able to use your, what is it called? Debuff immunity and invisibility to your whole team, and your lowest HP unit is most likely a ranged unit, so she will go invisible such that this unit is no longer able to attack her. So she will run to the tank, and when she is focused on the tank is when she will start using these skills. So I find that Thea is just very, very good. She counters a lot of units. She counters as debuffs, she counters AoE targets, and she counters units that can basically charge you, like they go past the tank and they're able to just teleport to the back line. There are a few units that I've seen do that, and Thea is a very effective counter to that. So I really hope that that you give Thea another try. If you already have Thea and you kind of put her in the back line, I strongly suggest that you take another look at her, because she's really, really good. There are several dungeons that I can just very quickly mention that she is very good at. The first dungeon is, nope, not that one. Sorry, it's in the other province, or the south part. So this dungeon, she's very good for the heretical runes, because what this enemy does is this enemy keeps spewing out fire. Fire and burn debuffs. So as long as you're not able to get the burn debuff on you, you are much more likely to survive, and you can focus on offense instead of defense just by being able to have the immunity to debuffs. The second dungeon that you will do really well with Thea is this one, the Grave of Rot. This gives you the accuracy. Where is it? Like the accuracy gear. So in this one, the enemy spews out poison, and if you're able to resist the poison debuff, then you're able to again stay alive much better, because most of the damage comes from the poison spewing. So by giving your entire team coverage to debuff basically, you're able to survive these encounters way better. So that's already 2 dungeons, and there are other enemies as well that do cause poison and burn. Like for example, the stage where you are getting the fire and poison materials to promote your heroes, that boss also does burn damage to your allies in AoE. So Thea again becomes very good in that stage as well. So overall, I find Thea is just very applicable in many different stages of the game, including PvP. So I strongly recommend her. I have been using her on my team for a while since I started using her, and then I had to wait to make sure that she's not outclassed by somebody else. That's an epic. She probably could be outclassed by legendary units, but I don't have access to all of them. I only have a few. So it's also much more likely that you are able to find epic heroes more readily available than legendaries, although epics are already really hard. But I've not seen a lot of people talking about Thea. I've seen a lot of people talking about other epics in the game, and they've said that they're some of the best. The other epics that I highly recommend, I'm not going to go too much into them, but some of the other epics that are really good that I've seen a lot of people mention is Voresh. Like he's is very very good, and I agree. He's also very powerful. Another really good one is, I don't know how to say this guy's name, but he's also top tier. I strongly believe that he's very effective. Um, but I believe that Thea is on par with them. Maybe just slightly less better than them, but still really, really strong. Oh, Nathaniel is also very good as well. Does a number of roles. It does some offensive capabilities as well. Very limited, but still better than the other support. Better than the other healing support type options. But Nathaniel does a lot of very good things as well. But yeah, I strongly recommend, for Bath is another one. I strongly recommend that if you have Thea, you give her another look and add her to your roster, especially if you have an ice slash necro team. So anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any comments, leave them down below, and I'll do my best to respond to you. Take care now. See you guys.